Everyone. Pause to acknowledge the recording. Good morning, everyone. Today, I thought I would share someone who is important to the library world. His name is Arturo Alfonso Schomburg. And if you live in the tri-state area, if you've been to New York Public, you may have heard of the Schomburg Library or the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, both which was named after him. And so I have a couple of things that I wanted to share. I have a short video that was put out by the New York Public Library, which covers a lot. And then because I am a children's librarian, I have to admit, everything I learn about most people is from children's books. And so, and this book it's about Schomburg, but it's also very much about some of the things that he uncovered while he was searching for books to add to his collection. And so I have a couple of short things that I wanted to share from there. A quick overview, or a very short, brief overview before I show the video. Arturo Schomburg was a historian, he was a writer, a collector, and an activist. He was Puerto Rican of African and African-American German descent. I'm getting all my words mixed up this morning. I should probably start that sentence over. A Puerto Rican of African and German descent. He moved to the United States in 1891, where he researched and raised awareness of the contributions of Afro-Latin Americans and African Americans have made to society. He was an important intellectual figure in the Harlem Renaissance. And over the years, he collected literature, art, slave narratives, and other materials of African history, which were purchased to become the basis of the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, named in his honor, at the New York Public Library branch in Harlem. And so, let's see if this works. Should I say optimize for video clip?
Yes. And click on share sound.
Yeah, it sort of did both at the same time. Uh-oh. There's a picture of him while I'm waiting for this thing to load up. I apologize. Here he is with artist Aaron Douglas, and that's a painting called Aspects of Negro Life, Song of the Towers, that part of his collection. And here he is as a young child in Puerto Rico, looking adorable. Let's see. Did this pop up again? Nope. This is what I get for okay, try again. There we go.
Arturo A. Schomburg, His Life and Legacy.
Arturo Alfonso Schomburg, the namesake of the New York Public Library's 135th Street branch, was born January 24, 1874 in Puerto Rico. Schomburg was born to Mary Joseph, a biracial Black woman from St. Croix, and Carlos Federico Schomburg, a German immigrant to Puerto Rico.
From a young age, Arturo expressed interest in literacy, academia, and history, joining several youth organizations that promoted the subject matter. Despite his interest in history and his connection to his African heritage via his mother and her family, Arturo was not easily exposed to African history. During his youth, Schomburg was told that Blacks had no history, and in 1927, he would recall these powerful sentiments that inspired his collecting.
Based on how Arturo lived his life, it's clear that he did not accept the idea that Blacks had no history. While living in Puerto Rico, Schomburg began his lifelong search of documents, books, and narratives detailing the accomplishments of Africans and their descendants. Before Arturo left Puerto Rico for New York City in the spring of 1891, he had the opportunity to study history under Puerto Rican historian and abolitionist José Julián Acosta and future official historian of Puerto Rico, Salvador Brau, two major influences on his career in the United States.
On April 17, 1891, at the age of 17, Schomburg moved to New York City. Within his first 5 years in New York, Schomburg became a Mason, joining the El Sol de Cuba Lodge 38, helped found and act as secretary of Las Dos Antillas, a Puerto Rican and Cuban independence group, and married his first wife, Elizabeth Hatcher.
From 1891 to 1898, Schomburg would become more deeply involved in the fight for Puerto Rican and Cuban independence. In resistance to his experience with racism in the United States and abroad, Schomburg began referring to himself as Afro-Borinqueño, or Afro-Puerto Rican. Schomburg felt that this term recognized the effects of the African diaspora upon his people and himself personally. To be Afro-Borinqueño meant recognizing the mixture of African, Spanish, and Black Anglophile culture upon your identity.
By 1898, Schomburg's public identity as a Puerto Rican had begun to wane. The death of close friends José Julián Martí Pérez and General Antonio Maceo, along with the Spanish-American War and the dissolution of the Cuban Revolution Party, led to Schomburg's disassociation with the movement. The loss of his friends and his political party, tied to his increasing commitment to his family, created a shift in Schomburg.
By the turn of the century, Schomburg's collection of Black literature, especially global Black literature, linked him to many significant figures in the Black liberation movement and the soon-to-be Harlem Renaissance. Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston visited Schomburg's home to view his collection of literature and materials. Schomburg sat on the Negro Committee of the New York Public Library's 135th Street branch alongside Charles S. Johnson and discussed Black empowerment with Marcus Garvey, a fellow Mason.
Prior to the New York Public Library's purchasing of his collection of Black literature and materials in 1926, Schomburg had already lent a significant number of materials to the 135th Street branch and hosted an exhibit at the 42nd Street branch on Haiti, combating perceptions portrayed in the U.S. media. The founding of the Negro Committee by Ernestine Rose, a prominent librarian at the 135th Street branch, would be the first major step in permanently connecting Schomburg to the New York Public Library.
In 1929, Fisk University received a near $500,000 grant to build a new library. After being invited by Fisk University President Charles S. Johnson to bolster the library's collection, Schomburg moved to Nashville to curate Fisk University's collection of Black literature and materials. During his tenure, he influenced the design of the new library, advocating for a reading room and an open space where students could browse the collection. By the time Schomburg left Fisk University in 1932, the school acquired more than 4,000 books on the global Negro experience and was known to have the most prominent collection on the subject.
At a young age, Schomburg decided he would dedicate his life to collecting literature and materials that exemplified the Black experience. It was Schomburg's belief that many of the issues of racism could be solved through proving that people of African descent had and continued to contribute significantly to global society. The Schomburg Center and the Fisk University Collection today offer patrons and students the opportunity to study the Black experience across the world.
So he did a lot. And I had two short things that I wanted to read. The name of the book is Schomburg, The Man Who Built a Library, and the author is Carol Boston Weatherford, and the illustrator is Eric Velasquez. And this is a section not the whole thing, but this is part of a section called Whitewash. In his quest for Black glory, Arturo Schomburg navigated a maze of misinformation that stripped Africans' humanity and branded them as less than to justify slavery. The system was based on skin color superiority and inferiority and was necessary, argued aristocrats, to build fortunes and empires. Arturo is suspected a conspiracy of fraud that aimed to erase all African history but bondage. Arturo saw that the historical record was colorblind only when that best served greedy motives. So when genius was Black, skin color was left out. But Schomburg chased the truth and turned up icons whose African heritage had been whitewashed. And part of some of the people that he found African roots in their family tree was the ornithologist and naturalist John J. Audubon, who was born to a French plantation owner and a Creole chambermaid. So which I did not know that he had any Black roots at all. The French author Alexander Dumas, who was also descended from slaves, and that was not widely broadcast. Alexander Pushkin, the Russian poet, and his great-grandfather was Abram Gonabal, who was kidnapped as a child in Central Africa, served in the court of Peter the Great, and rose to become a general and an aristocrat himself. So that was Pushkin's great-grandfather, excuse me. And finally, this one I also didn't know, Beethoven, Ludwig van Beethoven, had ties to Africa. He was often described as a mulatto, or a Moor. His mother was said to be North African. So that was yet another person who had African ties that was not widely known. And then the last thing I wanted to read, this is actually the prologue of the book, but I think it kind of wraps up his legacy. Arturo Schomburg was more than a book lover, more than a mailroom clerk at Bankers Trust, where he supervised 11 white men, unheard of authority for a Black man at that time. He recognized early on that history was not history unless it was complete from all angles. Like a detective, he hunted for clues and found facts affirming the role of African descendants in building nations and shaping cultures. Fellow book collector Arthur Spignar noted that Arturo would, I think this is a quote, approach an immense pile of apparently worthless material and unerringly find one or two treasures which would have been lost to a less inspired collector. Arturo believed that those facts, once unearthed, would speak loud and clear in halls of knowledge, daring another teacher to tell a Black child that the Negro has no history. Time and again, through print, music, and art, Schomburg proved otherwise. On his lifelong quest, he was not just collecting rarities, he was correcting history for generations to come. He wanted the facts to reach the community and boys and girls in classrooms to teach them that Black heritage knows no national boundaries. And today, the Harlem Library bearing Schomburg's name boasts more than 10 million items, a beacon for scholars all over the world, bringing light to past glories that Arturo always knew existed. And so that is my fairly short, but I hope informative presentation on Arturo Schomburg.
Excellent presentation, Liz. Very informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And I've been a member of Schomburg like forever and ever. And Langston Hughes's ashes is in the lobby floor of the Schomburg.
Wow.
And there's a story where Maya Angelou and can't think of the poet name, they actually danced on Langston's ashes. Every year in March, they have March for celebrating March, Women History Month. They have women in jazz. Any permanent author, illustrator, painter that you know have been at the Schomburg. So thank you for that presentation. It's an awesome place to be. Every year in the summertime, there's a street festival. There's always workshops and things like that. And the library is great. There's always great exhibits also. Thank you.
There are also lots of first editions at the Schomburg. I did my paper on Their Eyes Were Watching God, and it's autographed to Schomburg from Zora Neale Hurston.
Thank you, Denise. You know, that's my girl.
I know.
I mean, one of the things I found is that many Harlem Renaissance authors and illustrators did research with him with his collection. So he was, I also like the part about how his wife was like, this is it, we have to get everything out of this house. It was like his collection was getting huge and she was like, this is enough. But who can blame her? Another fun fact, which probably is of interest to no one but me, but he had 3 wives and they were all named Elizabeth. Consecutively, not concurrently. So anyway, I don't know if anyone has any other questions, but I will say, if anyone has any interest in any children's books on Black History Month, we now have 3 displays. There's one in the lobby, there's one in the lower level children's room, and there's one in the first floor children's room. So if you want a quick look that is not necessarily going to be a glazed over overview, there's lots of really good in-depth stuff there. Short reads.
And I mentioned last week that at least one of the displays is on Instagram.
Oh.
Thank you so much.
That was great, Liz. Thank you.
It was great.
Thank you. Lots to choose from.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, the youth services collection is quite comprehensive. I was down there the other day. Cheryl and I were walking through. Very impressive. A lot of material.
If you need another time, I have another person that I was sort of dithering whether to do that one or this one. So if you need another spot, I might volunteer again.
Okay.
Actually, we
Sounds
do.
good.
Wednesday, we need a spot.
Oh,
It's
this
open.
week. I don't think I
Yeah.
can this Wednesday. But I'll look ahead.
I might have one for Wednesday. I gotta look it up. See if I can find what I want. But it's open to everybody. Anybody who has an interest and would like to do a presentation, please volunteer. It's fun.
It was fun looking up and getting all the info, I have to say, and not having to write a real paper at the end of it.
Yeah, that's why I'm not in academia. I like the research, but not the writing. All right, see everybody tomorrow. Melanie, what time is it tomorrow?
It's 9:30 and it's Chris. Will be
All right.
presenting.
All right, see everybody tomorrow.
Okay, thanks again, Liz.